What is up, everybody? It's your boy Shazwiyt, and welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me yet again, and thank you so much for your continued support. As you can see, we have another human being in our presence today.
Yes.
Does this human being want to introduce himself?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Sharpie. Sharp, that's about it
Yeah,
for right now.
cool. So Sharpie is a very good friend of mine. He's also my roommate, and he's going to be joining us for today's discussion on gun control. If you're new to this channel and you are clicking on me for the very first time, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also turn on that post notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a video. With that being said, let's get straight into today's video, which I hope will not be too long, but this is a
We will find out after all.
we will see. It's a pretty controversial topic.
Mhm.
It's definitely very relevant right now. So basically, I'm going to ask you a few questions, but I'm going to give a little intro to set up the conversation.
Yeah, sure, let's
And
do
then,
it.
okay, so as we know, like mass shootings, happen so often,
Mhm.
and not just mass shootings, but like shootings in general. In August alone, apparently about 53 people or so died from mass shootings.
Oof.
With El Paso, Dayton, Gilroy, all of those cities.
Mhm.
Even Mississippi, apparently something happened in, was it South Haven? I heard something happened there.
It very well could have. I
Mhm.
just try not to keep up.
I'll keep up, yeah, it's depressing.
Yeah.
But I think it was only 2 or 3 people that died. But still, it's still sad either way.
Absolutely.
So I don't need to regurgitate, stats on like gun violence and all that stuff. We already know it's a problem. So the funny thing about laws is that you only put a law in place if you see the need for it.
Mhm.
So I was looking at this global map, which I might insert in the video, that showed all the countries around the world that are restrictive when it comes to gun laws, and then other countries that don't really do anything.
Mhm.
So, the majority of the countries in the world, like, they do something about their gun laws. They put something there, but then the rest, like, didn't. But those are the minority. Even in Zimbabwe, we have some gun laws. Like, about maybe 98% or so of people don't even own a gun.
Okay.
And crime is pretty low. So that was pretty interesting. It seems like the majority of people in the world recognize that even if there isn't a problem with gun violence, there should be some sort of law in place in case something happens. So that's going to be the main issue with like our discussion today is I used to be anti-gun, but I don't like anti-gun because it's like it kind of gives the impression that I'm against guns completely, but I think we need them in some, situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you identify on this gun?
I mean, on the topic of gun control, I am very pro gun.
Mhm.
I own many guns. I've grown up with them. It's just another part of life to me. So,
So, since you're pro gun, are you pro gun control, or are you like only like do you support gun control in any way? Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I kind of like the laws how they are right now.
Mhm.
Only because, like, sure, fugitives shouldn't have guns. Or not fugitives, sorry, felons should not have guns.
Mhm.
Fugitives too, I suppose. I like that there's age requirements for certain types of weapons. I like how you get background checked if you buy a gun at like a normal store.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I just like how we got it right now. Most guns are registered.
Mhm.
And if somebody does do something as horrible as a mass shooting,
Mhm.
regardless of what they use, they can be tracked back because of their gun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we keep it pretty decent, I'd say, like gun control laws in general around here.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's just where I stand.
So when you say around here, do you refer to Mississippi only or the
I
whole
mean,
country?
Mississippi, I would say the whole country, because I think it's pretty standard across the map of how gun control is.
Mhm.
It's probably a lot looser in Mississippi,
Mhm.
and in states like Alabama, Georgia, all that. But I don't know. I've just lived with it how it has been. And I just don't want it to be a hassle next time I get a new gun.
Okay. So you say that you're okay with the gun laws now. You know, they're pretty decent. But then there are all these shootings that happen, and they seem to be getting worse and worse, or they're becoming more frequent. You know, which is a problem.
Absolutely.
So, but if you say that you're happy with the laws or you're okay with them, then what's the solution? If let's say if it's not a change to the laws, what needs to change?
Well, what I believe needs to change is just like kids' demeanor. Because, I mean, even, let's say we do change the laws, right? Let's make it harder to get guns. Most of these school shootings happen at, like, high schools. Just by the rules of owning a gun, most kids in high school cannot purchase a gun. They have no access to it. They aren't over 18. And even if they are, they can get a shotgun. I believe you can get rifles at 21. I know pistols are 21 at the very least. And the issue isn't, in my opinion, around the guns. It's more around how the parents choose to be with their guns. Like, the kids, they aren't getting them. You change gun control, it's not going to affect them. If their parents still own guns and they're going to go shoot up a school, they're just going to go get the guns from their parents. And not saying that the parents are in on it. But it would be like they just go to the gun safe in the house, open it up, get whatever's already there, and shoot. Regardless of how the laws are, it's quite literally like taking candy from a baby, because the safe's not going to stop you. And
so since so many homes own these guns already, and they end up having kids who can take these guns, how do we solve that problem of? Because obviously it's hard. You can't really take away guns completely from civilians. Because I've seen the biggest defense with pro-gun people is they say self-defense. So is there a way to solve that issue of like how would you approach that if you had a child in your home and you have guns, obviously, how would you make sure that that child never has access to your guns?
Well, I wouldn't want them to never have access to the guns. I mean, I grew up, guns were just about a common commodity in the house. They're pretty much everywhere around, and I would, instead of going like the kid can't have a gun, I would rather teach my kid the importance of a gun, the importance of life, because a lot of the time, when people shoot up schools, they're angry, they're upset about something, sometimes just fucking crazy. But it's either they don't have a full grip of what they're gonna do, or if they do, they're just plain evil people. And I mean, there's really nothing you can do about that, in my opinion. But I mean, I would do what my dad did for me, which was go out to the range, shoot, give me life lessons about them, and just be there for the child. Let them adjust to it until they don't see a gun as a weapon, more of just a regular tool.
So you think that restricting people, it's kind of like I've seen families whereby in families that are more strict and more restrictive on kids, they turn out to have the most rebellious children. So do you think that applies in this way? Like, if you keep people from guns, they're gonna come to them eventually. So do you think it's better to expose guns to kids at an early age, but teaching them how to?
Well, an early age is a really questionable term for the situation. I would, of course, if they're around 5, 6, get them a BB gun. I don't play around with that. And if they start showing signs that they could be aggressive to other people, discipline them however that is that you will do that as a parent, or something along those lines. Because I mean, I never shot a real gun until I was about 11. And by a real gun, I mean I believe it is a 243 Winchester rifle, and it I don't know. I would start shooting that in the afternoons, shot it hours at a time, and I just grew close with it. Also, my 243 was a single load rifle. I feel like the biggest concern right now with guns and mass shootings is the assailants aren't coming in with a shotgun or a rifle. They're coming in with automatics, and they can shoot several rounds over a matter of moments. If, and heaven forbid, I decide I'm going to shoot up a school, I think my best rifle to do that would be my 30-30 lever action rifle. I could get a couple of people, no doubt, but I'm not going to get these double-digit high scores that the shooters are now getting up with.
Okay. So do you think there should be a ban on those kind of weapons then? Those like automatic or semi-automatic?
I feel like the automatic and semi-automatic should just be a lot more difficult to acquire. And that does go back on what I was saying earlier. I also have no need to own one of those. I deer hunt, and if I have to shoot 30 rounds at a deer, I'm doing something wrong.
Okay. So, instead of making it harder to acquire it, why not just restrict it completely then, if you're never going to need to use it?
Well, if we restrict it completely, we are going against the Constitution about the right to bear arms, and I feel like if you start telling people, oh no, you can't have an automatic rifle, they're still going to get an automatic rifle, regardless. I mean, you can go to a gun show and get a Barrett 50 cal, and those are just tank busting rifles. And to me, there's no need at all to own one of those besides bragging rights.
Okay.
But I mean, sure, if you make it illegal in like stores or gun shops, you're still gonna have people buying. And now that they're buying through unconventional means, it's just going to raise the risk of things going wrong.
Okay.
Like if I go to the gun store and I get a gun, I'm not in a concerning space. I know the guy. He knows me. I've gone through the back checking stuff. And I know, like, while I'm doing this not extraction, but exchange, I'm not going to be shot. Now, if I go down some back alley and some dude has a car full of guns, and he's like, hey, kids, get your automatic rifles here. I'm not feeling that comfort, and it's more concerning because anything could go wrong there. And something could happen. So, yeah, I have no idea where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but so do you think that the Second Amendment needs to be changed to specify what arms you have the right to bear?
I do not, because I mean there is the argument, of course, where people say the founding fathers intended us to have muskets, which was the arms of their time. But simultaneously, America was pretty much found off of rebellion and revolutions. And if something were to happen in the government where there was mass, like let's say in a terrible world, America became Nazi Germany Part 2.
Yeah.
I personally would love to be able to go into my
Hopefully we won't have that
my
world.
automatic and shoot some krauts.
Yeah.
But I just think just how the Constitution is written, it's more of a self-preservation thing for the people, and I just don't believe we need to change it from what it is.
Okay, but with the whole argument about being afraid that the government could try to do something, the government, which I guess controls the army or is connected to the army, if they obviously have access to all the nuclear weapons and all the big weapons
Oh, absolutely.
that can kill hundreds of thousands to millions of people.
Mhm.
Don't. So, in my opinion, I think that if they all of a sudden wanted to use these weapons of mass destruction to wipe out all 300 something million people in this country, don't you think they could have done that if they wanted to?
Oh yes, they absolutely could.
So, is there any point in trying to protect yourself from a government that could kill you at any point?
Well, you see that's it's a decent argument, but let's say, right, that I don't know, you're working with a buzzsaw or something, and
Like a saw, like an actual saw.
yeah,
Okay.
and people tell you you should, or even better, let's say a table saw, just table saw in the middle, you're pushing boards through it. But any second, if that saw breaks, that thing could jump out and stab you in the face,
Yeah.
rip your face right off. Now, sure, wearing safety glasses in this situation, it's not going to make a difference, but it gives you that sense of safety, and
Okay, I see what
that's
you're
what we would really need. Like, sure, yeah, if President Trump's going to nuke all of Mississippi, he can nuke it,
Yeah.
but at the very least, I'd like to be able to grab my rifle, salute the bomb before it drops, and then be gone. Because if I don't die, I can fight. If I do die, well, I'm dead. And
Okay.
it's no longer my problem.
So you don't want citizens to feel completely helpless.
Absolutely.
I see where you're coming from. Okay. So I did have a few questions. Like while we were talking, we've already answered some of these. My first question was, what's your personal experience with guns? You've already talked about your background. So you mentioned that you own a multitude of guns passed down to you, but you don't open carry these guns. And I also asked you if it's legal to use those guns for hunting without a gun license, and then you said yes.
Well, it's not technically legal. In terms of having guns and using them for hunting, if I'm on my own land, yes, I can do that.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. But I can't like go somewhere and hunt unless I have my gun license renewed. Or hunting license, not gun license.
Oh, okay. So the guns you use with the hunting license, are they the same that you use with a gun license?
No. With the gun license, if I were to, get properly licensed to own a firearm and have it as a concealed carry thing, it would only be my revolver at best. What I use for hunting is my 30-30, the 30-06, and that 243.
Okay. So how big is it? Is it like a big one? Is it like what's it different?
Well, so the 243 is the smallest of the three that I usually use. Shoots a round about yay big, pretty small. The 30-30 shoots one about this big.
Okay.
30-06 shoots one like about that big.
Wow.
Yeah, 30-06 one, that will put an end to most things good days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, what stops a hunter from killing a human being?
Oh, absolutely nothing. It happens all the time. Where, if you mean in the sense of they're out hunting and somebody accidentally gets shot, that's fairly common.
Okay.
But usually people will wear some sort of orange because that's not usually a color you're going to see out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see that, you're not supposed to shoot it. Now, there's assholes all around the world who will like bring a buddy, quote unquote, over into the woods and they'll just fucking shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
But normally, in normal hunting circumstances, nobody gets shot.
In normal circumstances.
Yeah, of course. There's always accidents that can happen. Somebody not wearing anything. And also, it's just bad hunting practice. But some people will see some movement in a bush and they'll just shoot at the bush. That could be anything. The way my dad always taught me was you watch it, make sure what you're shooting at is what you want to shoot. Make sure there's nothing behind it that you don't want to shoot. And if your shot is clear, shoot. But a lot of people, they'll just see something, move a little bit, and they just throw a gun up, fire.
Yeah.
And it could be anything in there, man. It could be the kid playing around. It
True.
could be a grown man taking a piss. It could be just anything. It's always terrible whenever it's something that's not a deer or whatever animal you were hunting at the time.
So the thing about these conversations about gun control is that it's not just about how do we stop mass shootings and shootings in general, but it's also about how do we get to a point where I don't have to ask the question, what if? I don't have to ask the question of, what if you, a so-called responsible gun owner, were to take your gun one night and kill me? Because a lot of these mass shooters are people who have no history of mental illness, were perfectly sane people, but have their own reasons or excuses to like kill people. Because the thing is that as long as guns are involved, there's no such thing as 100% no possibility of you shooting me. You know? Because the thing is, if people go about life with this mentality that because I know this person, because, you know, they've, for like, let's say 50 years, they've been responsible, there's no way that they can shoot me. I don't think that's true, because it's kind of like with Superman. He can kill anyone at any time. You can shoot anyone at any time. So I think it's also about like, how do we get to a point where I don't have to think about those what if situations? I know it's a little extreme, but it's like...
Well, sadly, even in a perfect world, I don't believe there could be a no what if situation with guns. Because even if we were to somehow outlaw all guns...
For like civilians.
Yeah, sure. If we were to, there would still be those same kids who are gonna do something bad. Sure, they may not have a gun. They can bring in a knife. They can bring in an axe. They can, bring in just about anything else. Hell, somebody who has just a bad day gets a pair of brass knuckles can easily cave somebody's face in. And sadly with those kids who do bring those weapons in, or guns for now, they're just gonna do it. They aren't gonna stop and think, oh, well, I don't have a good old AR-15, I'm going to not cause violence and mayhem. So it's gonna be like, well, I'm really tired of so-and-so, I got a knife, I'm just gonna stab him. And if they know where to stab at, they can be just as deadly, if not more deadly, than a gun user in those situations.
But wouldn't it be easier to stop people with knives or all of these weapons than a gun?
One would believe, but it is not. If anything, the gun is an easier thing to stop. If somebody, like let's say police get involved, you can quickly walk in, identify who has the weapon, and you can put a stop to it. Somebody using a knife and having about 3 brain cells can just put the knife in their pocket. And then you have a sea of kids all terrified, especially if nobody saw you. You attack this person, then the whole sea of kids could be the possible suspect, who is still armed. If he gets close enough to you, you will also be dead.
Okay, so you're saying you can't hide guns?
Most guns that I hear about in the news, you cannot.
Okay.
Now, yeah, there are many guns you can hide, pistols, short shotguns. You could hide them very easily.
But these other ones, it's like, nothing.
Yeah, like you're not sticking an AK in your pants and nobody's gonna question it. Someone's gonna be able to tell.
Okay, fair. If you're president, what federal gun laws would you put in place?
I would simply put in place that if you are going to buy a gun, get a gun safe. So have somewhere to put your guns that is secure, and your kids can't just go in and grab them whenever they want. That'd be about it.
Okay.
Or have the safes come with a purchase of your first gun.
Mm. Why is gun culture so big in the U.S.?
Probably 90% of that's just came from the revolution. We had the whole Wild West going on for a while.
Yeah.
And we just, since we've been able to have access, we just like to have it. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of it is just the South is really big on guns. Because honestly, there ain't nothing else to do out here besides hunt most of the time. So we just like them. If you go up north, though, more people are like, oh, guns are bad. I don't want anything to do with them. Maybe even whole counties of which you don't own a single gun.
So why is it big in the South and not in the North?
Oh, it's big in the South. Probably. This is just what I can piece together from being around people who own guns. The whole Civil War had happened, and where I don't agree with them, they will call it the War of Northern Aggression, where they will claim the North shot first in the war. And I feel like if anything, they're just being armed in case something like that were to happen again. Not that it will, and God forbid it happens, but it's just being precautious.
Okay.
Also, we hunt a lot. Like, there's deer everywhere.
Yeah, true.
So.
Awesome. So in Australia and New Zealand, they've had mass shootings as well. Mass shootings isn't just an American thing, it happens worldwide. And so after these mass shootings, these countries were forced to react fast with, their gun laws. So in Australia, like the US, certain states were pushing for gun laws while others weren't. So in Australia, the state of Victoria, in 1988, there were mass shootings, and Victoria pushed for gun laws, but because the rest of the country wasn't up for it, it didn't really, work. And then in 1996, when there was another mass shooting, actually mass shootings happen all the time. There was this one called the Port Arthur massacre or something, where about 35 people were killed. And in Australia, the mass shootings were big. Here, a mass shooting is something like, if it's at least 5 people or so, it's considered a mass shooting. But they have big ones, double digits all the time. So then in 1996, the government put together the National Firearm Agreement. And after that, the country went more than a decade without any mass shootings. So since 1996, which was about 23 years ago, there have been no mass shootings, and gun-related deaths, including suicides, have reduced dramatically, like almost zilch. So with all of these statistics in mind, and also with statistics in the US where certain counties or states where gun laws were put in place and deaths decreased and it actually worked, how do you think we could apply these over to the US, like something that happened in Australia? And before you answer that question, let me tell you what the gun law actually said. So according to the NFA, it placed tight control on semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons. Although permitted their use by licensed individuals who required them for a purpose other than personal protection, the act included a gun buyback provision.
Okay. I wouldn't be against the idea of it, but again, I do not own any automatic weapons, and I sadly don't think that would work. I believe we tried that with Obama a couple of years ago, where we were doing a buyback program, and everyone was like, not getting my guns, sorry. And
a buyback, where the government gives people money to get their guns.
They pretty much just pay them to sell them their guns.
Okay.
Now, I think in America we did just an all-gun thing. It wasn't just the semi-automatic and automatics. I could be wrong though, so fact check me, please.
Okay.
But I remember being around during that time, and I just didn't like the sound of it. But again, I'm still in the mindset personally of have your gun, protect yourself. Um, Now, sure, it might decrease shootings and suicide,
Mm-hmm.
but depending on the person, if they are having these suicidal thoughts, sure, they're not going to get to use a shotgun to the heart and be all poetic. They'll have to hang themselves like everybody else. But I just don't I don't see a real correlation, or I don't see the causation of the guns being taken away and then suicide rates dropping pretty low. Because if you truly are going to kill yourself, there's a whole slew of ways to do it. Now maybe it's suicide gun related that dropped low, but suicide in general I feel like is a really broad term that I can't fathom it actually lowering. Now I could be wrong, and I might be the bad guy here, but if it's I understand the gun violence, that makes perfect sense, but the suicide's just don't make too much sense to me.
When I was researching the one in Australia, it said gun-related suicides went down,
Okay.
but they don't have a problem with suicides also at the same time.
That's
As well, it's a very small thing. So I do get your point though. Like it would get rid of the whole gun-related suicide, but if you want to kill yourself, you can.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other approach.
Yeah.
But then with the studies in the U.S., where certain states like were testing gun laws and stuff, they did record not only lower gun-related suicides, but also lower suicides in general. And I think that's because since guns are way more accessible here, and if you want to kill yourself faster, like if I wanted to commit suicide, I would use a gun because I don't want to go through a painful, long process of cutting myself and waiting for the blood to come out or hanging myself. I would rather just get a gun and shoot myself. And then, but yeah, I don't know.
Right. I mean, I get it. I hope you don't, kill yourself.
No, I won't.
That would be
I
horrible.
won't, by the way.
But
yeah.
I would definitely hate that. But yes, suicide will go down because the gun-related section is going down. But you would have to look at it. If you're going to say the suicide part, because that's sort of like a trigger word for people to be pro something. If people are not killing themselves, but it seems to me it's just taking away one of the means in which people will kill themselves. Now, if taking guns away reduced by somehow was able to reduce rates of hanging, then yeah, absolutely take those automatics on out of here. And I don't want an automatic. No need for it. They seem absolutely excessive. But some people, they're just bad shots. They need to have that many rounds. And I feel like if they feel like that's something that they need, to me, regardless of the reason, they should be allowed to buy it and have it.
But why should they if there's so many cases where those are the weapons that are killing people?
Well, because it's just it's like freedom, kind of the whole U.S. of A thing. Yes, there's a chance it could happen, but not everybody in the world who owns these weapons are going to go through and do these heinous acts. And I mean, if we look at gun owners in general versus these mass shooters, I'm sure the mass shooters are in a very large minority, or a very small minority, in comparison to all the other gun owners in the world who are not, doing those things. I mean, it's sort of like just having only the bad side of all gun owners being shown.
Yeah.
Where there's people like me who owns a multitude of guns. I appreciate that I can have them, and I don't threaten people with gun violence. I don't shoot up schools. Most I'll do is shoot up a deer one too many times because I missed the first shot.
Okay. Let's see.
Sure.
Okay, we already talked about that. You know how the biggest defense is people always saying, the right to protect myself. By the way, I'm not oblivious to the fact that you do need some kind of defense.
No, of course.
Being from Zimbabwe, where literally almost everyone doesn't own a gun, both my parents do own guns. My mom has never touched it, she doesn't. There's never been a need for it up until last summer. But my dad, he uses guns because he hunts just like you. And also, my parents, like, they own a farm. So obviously you need protection there too.
Absolutely.
So because the economy in Zimbabwe, is really bad, people become desperate. People don't have jobs, so, illegal gun purchases happen. And like back home, the armed robbery is extremely rare. It never happens. But there were a few cases that did happen in the capital over the holiday. And we did get something stolen at our house, like the motor gate that makes the gate work. So obviously, um, there was a night where like the dogs detected some thieves and all that stuff, and some neighbors, and my dad has done this before, where you go outside and you shoot a gun in the air,
Yeah, a warning shot.
a warning shot, and it's always helpful. So in those situations, I can definitely see the need for it. So I don't want people to think that I'm in this oblivious sort of position whereby no, we can get rid of guns completely, like, and be all happy and perfect. No,
Yeah, absolutely.
because I think conversations like this can never go forward if we come up with really stupid, almost impossible sort of measures.
Yeah.
And as you've been talking to me, um, you've been telling me realistically how Americans feel,
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
I mean,
So.
I don't want to speak for all of America.
No, not all of America.
I can barely speak for Mississippi as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. We're going to bring in some sort of insight.
So some people say we need more guns to stop the bad people with guns. Do you think? How do you feel about putting more guns into the situation, like arming teachers or encouraging more civilians to own guns?
Well, if we were to do something like that, we would need to do it without the schools knowing that they're implementing these rules, right? So, only because if somebody already has access, or let's say little Timmy, right? He
Yeah.
wants to go shoot up his school
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Well, he can't get into his gun locker, but he knows Miss Teacher has a gun in her desk. So all he has to do
It's just.
is open that desk.
Yep.
So I feel like if we are going to have schools in which teachers are armed, either they have to have the gun either on their person, which is probably not great for a learning environment,
Yeah.
and two, they would need to have the gun locked up somewhere where it's accessible to teachers. Like, let's say they have a gun locker in the, or not a locker, but a safe in the teacher's lounge. That I feel like would be useful. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to say any teacher should ever have the thought of shooting their kids, but simultaneously, if their kids are going to start shooting, I would prefer a fast acting, solution to the problem.
Yeah.
But, there is the simultaneous side that if a teacher gets a gun, there's a good chance she could misfire and do more damage than
Yep.
she is helping.
Yep.
So I would just hope we would train maybe 2-3 teachers in a school, depending on the size, of course. Like one for every, let's say, 100 kids. And have their rooms be close to the locker, or not locker, safe, so that they can get to it faster.
Yeah.
I only make the distinction between the locker and the safe because most lockers aren't that hard to break into.
No.
And I don't
They're
want
not.
to keep saying locker and I don't know, give some person the bright idea to do that, and then it's just another mass shooting.
So, well, that was basically the sum of all my questions, but the thing is, I'm still not convinced, because my issue with pro-gun people is that, You tell me why you want to keep your guns, but you don't give solutions to how to stop these shootings. Because they continue to happen and mass shootings are still a problem.
They do.
So you mentioned, okay, so I get, the whole thing of freedom, but freedom, you know, you know, that whole thing of freedom is what's killing people and all that stuff. So how would, altering the Second Amendment and giving a ban on weapons that you've already acknowledged you don't need, that won't change people's lives in any way? Like, why are you holding on to this whole idea of, well, people should still have them just for the sake of it? Because I get they are responsible gun owners, but even though the majority of gun owners are responsible, many people are still dying.
Well, I'm only against changing like the Constitution about that because if we do that now, right? Say nobody can get a what's it called, a M14. Well, in a few years, maybe a couple hundred, M14 is going to be obsolete again. And then once a gun gets obsolete and we continue to advance weapons, we would just have to then continuously go back and scratch out guns and be like, okay, well, that doesn't matter anymore. No, I don't know, laser weapons. So let's say we get to that stage of human development. It would just be constantly having to go back. And then if we start changing laws like that or constitutional like rights, people are going to want to also change the other ones. And I feel like that's just going to have a very large ripple effect that would just throw people into chaos.
But if you've already put a ban on automatic weapons, no matter how they're advanced, it's still an automatic weapon, a type of weapon.
True.
So why would there be a need to go back to change stuff if you already put the ban?
Well, if we say no automatic weapons, that wouldn't stop people from still shooting up a school with whatever they may have. And if guns continue to develop, we might have more access to like wall busting guns. That if you shoot at a wall, you can blow a hole right through it. Like a Beaver Bear 50 caliber can punch a hole through most walls, most metals. I just, for one, as horrible as it sounds, if it's an automatic weapon, they aren't that far from each other.
Yeah.
And at the very least, I mean, sure, a lot of kids won't see it coming, but they can know what's happening, as cryptic as that sounds. If I were to shoot up a school with my rifle, you wouldn't know you were dead till you hit the floor. Because I could be like across the street firing, or 2 streets away and still hit somebody reliably. And I feel like that would just be horrible to feel like your school's under some outside siege. But I mean, the best answer that I could give for like making gun violence happen less is just make it mandatory for people who own guns to have a spot in which they should put them, like in a gun law. And it's a hard law that would be very invasive into everybody's homes. But I just feel like that would be the only way to really reduce gun violence in America.
So if you're a gun owner with a license, whatever, and then you end up shooting someone, do you think former gun owners should be allowed to use a gun if they've committed a felony? Like
No,
what's the
they
law?
can't. They're
They
felons.
can't. It's done, right?
Yeah, if you have a felony, your guns are, I believe they're either taken from you or sent to somebody else, or maybe it's most likely just taken.
They take it.
And then from there on out, you are unable to buy a gun. When you go into the background check, man, and be like, hey, I want this gun, they're going to look at you and say, oh, I'm sorry, you are indeed a felon, get the hell out of here.
Okay. So I think overall I can walk away from this conversation knowing that You gave one suggestion, the gun safe thing. I could see how that would be useful because you're relating it to making sure kids or other people in the house wouldn't get it. But that doesn't stop the people who own the gun safes from not doing something.
Yeah.
But I guess if you cancel out one problem at a time,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Because there's only one way to like guarantee, like to get rid of this problem completely, and that's getting rid of all guns. But you already know that'll cause issues,
Yeah, it will just cause more problems.
and we need civilians to have some sort of protection. And I get that. I myself wouldn't mind owning a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I 100% will take responsibility if I shoot someone.
Oh, it's
It'll
on
be
you.
it's on me. I go to jail. All that.
Friend
That's
or not,
fine.
I'll turn you in for you.
That's cool. Period. Done. You know what I mean? So I'm not satisfied. I feel like you didn't give me enough of a. But it's hard. It's a hard situation.
It is hard to.
But the gun safe thing, I do get it though. It's
I mean, that's the best I can get, at least for high school level gun violence to dwindle at the very least.
So throughout this conversation, you've heard most of Sharpie's opinion. In regards to my opinion, I'll say I think the Second Amendment needs to be altered. And this is my opinion, by the way.
No, absolutely.
I think the Second Amendment needs to be altered. I think a whole lot of weapons need to be banned completely, and then only certain weapons can be used. Because I'm not educated on firearms and ammunition, I'm not going to say what kind of things should be banned, but some things should be banned, like automatic weapons and all that stuff. And the whole thing about how in the South people are bored and want to hunt deer and all that stuff, I feel like you should only do it with certain weapons, because taking away certain guns won't make a difference in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I like the feeling of knowing let's say I own a mansion with like 60 rooms. Yes, it's nice to feel, to have the knowledge of knowing I live in this big house. But if I'm one person, I don't need that house. And if I'm reduced to a normal house that works for me,
Sure.
yeah, I might be upset that, I don't have a big ass house, but you have to think about everyone else in that situation. And this whole defense of like how people die from other things, there are way more people who die from like disease or die from knifing and all these other things. But I think the reason why I think like guns gain more attention is because it kills way more people faster.
Oh yeah, it will definitely kill people a lot faster.
And there's no way we're getting rid of knives. That's stupid. And I think you brought out a good point, because all of these things have ripple effects. So it's not just about putting a law in place. It's about thinking what kind of effect will come after. But the good thing is I can walk away from this video knowing that this has worked in some countries. The US is definitely its own species. You know what I mean? Like
No doubt. We are our own beast here.
Exactly. Like Australia and New Zealand, they act fast, but their history is not really like here. It's different. But no, a change definitely needs to happen. I don't know what kind of change. Do you think a change needs to happen? Some sort of change?
Yeah, of course, there does need to be one.
Exactly. And I think that's important. Like, we can agree that a change needs to happen. I do agree that people do need guns in some sort of capacity. There's nothing wrong with hunting. And, it's unfair to responsible gun owners who are the vast majority, And I get that there are a lot of bad areas and neighborhoods in the US. Like, if I stay in Compton or Southside Chicago, I get how you would need a gun and stuff.
Oh, hell, you could still need it down here in Mississippi.
True. And that's the scary thing about these shootings, is that they're happening in places where they've never happened before. Like when the Virginia Beach thing happened, where 9 people killed in some building. People are saying how this has never happened before, but it's not safe anywhere.
No. You can get shot anywhere, but I mean, I just like to live by the philosophy of every past second. If I'm not dead, it's a good day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just try not to worry myself with things like that. Because you're just always going to be scared if you do.
True. Well, we could talk about this all day, but I think we covered a lot of bases on this. This is good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please be sure to stay tuned for the next video. Thank you so much for joining me yet again. Thank you to Sharpie for his, really great opinions. Being the fact that I'm not from the US, it was also helpful to have you here because you've lived in the US like your whole life, of course, in the South, when there are more gun owners. So it's helpful to have like a second opinion like this because I could very well easily make ignorant opinions about the US.
Oh, sure, yeah. Because if it would happen, I wouldn't judge you for it.
Yeah,
The US hasn't really been as dazzling as it once was. But,
yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show with you.
Of course, context is important. I think walking away from this conversation, I have more context about certain things and understanding why, gun culture is so big and all that. That doesn't defend, many people being killed, but I can at least understand, But if you're some Trump supporting, like KKK supporting person, and that's pushing you to, want to shoot a lot of people, yeah, I think that's a bad thing, But also like, it doesn't matter what your reason is. Don't kill people.
Yeah, just don't kill people. It's not in good taste.
It's not kosher, as Sharpie would say.
It's not kosher.
Yeah, exactly. So don't kill people. Be a decent human being. Let's love. Let's keep talking. We'll obviously keep talking about this. Like we always talk about this.
All the time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much. Fist pump me. Peace out, Shazwiyt gang. I'm out.